I think it's a huge relief for Prince Andrew and his team, and probably the whole royal family. Obviously, there've been a lot of brinkmanship over the past few weeks between Miss Giuffre and Prince Andrew's legal team. But I think everyone ultimately was expecting that a settlement would ultimately be reached. And I think it's a good day for Prince Andrew and his team that one has been reached in principle. A lot of this has been predicated on wanting a public trial and Prince Andrew to stand to account. But I think what we have to remember is that the statement that's been issued even today is quite a powerful one. He has accepted that Epstein, who's sort of condemned Epstein. He's showed some compassion and support for the victims of Epstein, which I think has been, some would say, has been lacking previously. So I think for many, and for Ms. Giuffre's legal team, this will still be seen as a victory. It was vitally important for Prince Andrew's team that there wasn't going to be an admission of liability, and I think that would have been a key part of any settlement. But I think for many, this probably comes as close as they could do to making those sorts of admissions without admitting guilt. So he's admitted, he's condemned Epstein, he's publicly supported the victims, he's admitted that he's never intended to malign Ms. Giuffre's character. In terms of the public, I think many will see that statement coupled with the substantial payment to Ms. Giuffre's charity and will as noteworthy. But obviously, for many people, many members of the public would have wanted a public trial and for these issues to be brought to light. I think it was the threat of having to be put on trial and cross-examined in the witness stand will have been a huge would have had a huge impact on that decision to settle. And the other people that could have been called as witnesses as well, not just Prince Andrew, it could have drawn in other members of the royal family and his family into the trial. So I think that will have been a huge pressure on him to settle this case, and that's why I think many people expected this settlement to come. Obviously, settlement figures in the US tend to dwarf those of settlement figures in the UK. I think when they say substantial, it will be extremely substantial. It's very difficult to predict how much that will be. But I think many people will be questioning how Prince Andrew is going to be able to afford what is likely to be an extremely substantial settlement. Well, there's going to be very little that he can say about this case going forward because it will be subject to very strict confidentiality provisions. So I think probably his team is hoping that he will be able to say, all he'll be able to say is the agreed statement that's been issued and not much more. So I think it's going to be trying to focus on more positive things like supporting victims and doing what he can to move away from this incident. But I think that, I mean, my best advice would be to keep a low profile for a significant amount of time, and then in the future maybe look to do some more charity work, etc. in the future. But I suspect it's going to be a very long process before there's any attempt to sort of formally rehabilitate his position and give him a public facing role again. I think it's really difficult. Obviously, the royal family haven't been able to comment on it, and I think that was the only line that they could take. It's difficult, obviously. I mean, the decision to sort of strip him of his sort of royal roles, etc., was a big one, and I think with the impending trial and a potential cross-examination, that was all that they could do. So I think the royal family did all that they could do not to let it infiltrate and to leak into sort of the general perception of the royal family as a whole. And I think they've done the best possible job that they could do in the circumstances.